While eyes are most notably a design choice in most live-action and comic book series, in anime, they're given a unique design along with a unique ability. Series like Naruto, JJK, and even Code Geass possesses eyes that carry brilliant power. But which eye ability is the best, and which is the strongest? Of course, we can't cover every single manga or anime series with a unique eye power, or else this video will be 24 hours long. But if there's an underrated ability that was missed, feel free to comment below and explain why it's so overpowered. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Leonardo Watch's All-Seeing Eyes of God is a unique ocular power from Kekkai Sensen. Unlike many combat-oriented eye abilities, Leo's eyes are fundamentally a gift of perception and insight, bestowed upon him by a mysterious entity in exchange for his sister's sight. The eyes grant Leo vision beyond normal human spectrum. He can see the truth of the world. This perception goes so far that he can follow movements faster than light, or even unravel illusions that operate by rewriting causality itself. He can also see through solid matter and across long distances, tracing even the optic nerves of others back to their brain. In essence, nothing that happens around Leo escapes his notice. The eyes can even perceive residual colors of thought and memory left behind by living beings, allowing him to track individuals by the lingering imprint of their will. They can expose multidimensional constructs that technically don't exist, like invisible radar webs, and even reveal a person's true name or hidden nature. This incredible sight is paired with a special ability to manipulate the visions of others. Upon activation, Leo's eyes glow, and he can project hallucinations or distortions into someone else's visual field. For example, he can cause a person or even a machine with optical sensors to see multiple copies of an object, or to be blinded by sudden light, or to not see Leo at all if he's standing right in front of them. He typically uses this to compensate for his lack of physical strength. By confusing an enemy's sight, he can evade attacks or assist his more combat-capable allies in landing hits. The eyes also allow him a form of ocular telepathy. By looking at someone, he can share visual information or thoughts, and this is less used in battle and more of communication. But it's worth noting that Leo's eyes seem to have a connection to names and true forms, much like Shinigami eyes or even the mystic eyes in some respect. He can often perceive the true name or nature of a being by looking at them, which might reveal weaknesses or hidden aspects. In fact, they're the only known method of directly identifying and tracking the blood breeds, beings who are otherwise completely invisible to all forms of detection. More than that, the eyes can read their true names, a knowledge that makes them both invulnerable and dangerous. And what I mean by true names is more so for these blood breeds or supernatural entities compared to someone's full government name. But still, the eyes remain a support ability. Leo is still human and vulnerable, and determined foes can counter by relying on other senses. And overuse causes bleeding and blurred vision, sometimes leaving him temporarily blind. And while he can see nearly everything, he must still process it as a human, meaning floods of chaotic or fast-moving details can overwhelm him. Moving on is the Six Eyes, eyes that shine a bright blue and are bound by fate to Tengen and the Star Plasma Vessel. These eyes are the prized possession of the Gojo clan, and for a good reason. Several hundred years can pass before another Six Eyes user can exist, and no two bearers can exist at the same time. A common misconception with the Six Eyes is that they're a curse technique, but this is completely false. The Six Eyes are simply an innate physical trait, something that can be passed down in the Gojo clan only. One major detail about the Six Eyes is that they cannot be turned off, which is why Gojo constantly wears a blindfold. The Six Eyes is constantly taking information at a large quantity, which can be overwhelming for any user. So to compensate, Gojo often wears a blindfold or blacked out glasses to cover his eyes. A Six Eyes user is granted immense perception and an unrivaled visual powers, far beyond that of other sorcerers. Geass stated in his explanation of Gojo's ability to think of the Six Eyes Geass as a high-definition infrared camera, which can easily see things from several kilometers away and distinctively tell apart different figures within that range. The Six Eyes can see the flow of curse energy as well, empowering their bearer with the ability to read an individual's curse technique in use and determine its function. They can even differentiate between different types of curse energy and help the user identify a person based on it. The Six Eyes also allows the user to gain an extremely precise manipulation of cursed energy down to an atomic level. This not only allows a bearer to operate the limitless technique through complex control of cursed energy, but enables them to process it with great efficiency as well. The amount of cursed energy lost when a bearer spends cursed energy to activate a curse technique is infinitesimally close to zero, making it impossible for them to run out of cursed energy normally. As previously stated, the Six Eyes are a trait that cannot be deactivated or implied to not require curse energy to keep active. It's how Gojo was still able to use the Six Eyes despite being sealed in the prison realm, which is stated to seal cursed energy itself. The Six Eyes is an important trait for Gojo to possess because without the Six Eyes, using Limitless becomes a very tax-heavy technique. So taxing that in fact, it essentially becomes impossible to use it without the Six Eyes. The Six Eyes essentially help Gojo reduce the curse energy consumption of Limitless by a lot. In the bloody duels of Balsec, Gennosuke's Dojutsu is a subtle yet absolute counterattack. Unlike other eye powers, it turns an enemy's aggression back on themselves. When the Dojutsu is active, any combatant with murderous intent towards Gennosuke immediately falls prey to a hypnotic illusion. In practical terms, their senses warp, and they might see Gennosuke where their comrade is standing and cut down the wrong target, or even drive their weapon into their own body. But most importantly, it doesn't rely on one-to-one eye contact. The technique projects in an area of effect, catching anyone with killing intent, even from behind. This allows Gennosuke to handle multiple foes at once, as entire squads can end up slaughtering each other while he remains untouched. Fighting him becomes a terrifying mind game where the very act of trying to kill or harm him guarantees you're fighting yourself under his deadly gaze. But of course, the Dojutsu has its limitations. It's purely a defense ability that requires Gennosuke's eyes to open, and the hypnosis is only triggered by an intent to kill, meaning foes with machine-like detachment or those using indirect strategies like traps or poison could potentially slip through. Possibly the most conceptually fearsome eyes in fiction, the mystic eyes of death perception. It allows their user to perceive the fundamental morality in all things. Wielded by Shiki Ryougi, these eyes connect the very root of existence, unveiling lines and points of death on everything, whether it be living, inanimate, or even abstract. By tracing a line or piercing a point with a weapon, the user can bring instantaneous death to whatever that line represents, ending its existence at a foundational level. But to make it clear, this doesn't stop at simply killing living beings. For example, Shiki can cut the lines on a wall to kill its structure, or more impressively, she can target intangibles that aren't even alive. She has slain curses, ghosts, and even psychic powers. So, for example, this means on a battlefield, she could kill an opponent's ability to fly or shoot fireballs or whatever, effectively grounding them permanently. On a truly conceptual level, she has even killed the destiny of an event by cutting the lines on a future vision. She nullified the foretold outcome at its source. It's an absolute offense that bypasses any defense or durability with a single correct strike. However, this power has some critical limitations. The user must physically interact with the lines, meaning they need to be within striking range and possess the speed and skill to land the blow. The eyes offer no automatic protection. There's also the severe mental strain of perceiving the death of everything simultaneously, which can cause massive headaches. Finally, the eyes are limited by the user's own comprehension. If a target is so abstract or immortal that it lacks a clear concept of death, the lines may not appear. The user must first be able to imagine a target's end before they can perceive its death, although it is still an insanely broken ability to have available. Next, we have the Geass. It's a power that can be bestowed onto anyone. With with the actual ability itself being different depending on the user's inner desires and personality. Each time the Geass is used, its power increases, but should the user lack the willpower and mental fortitude to wield it, the power itself may consume the user. However, at some point, there will come a time where a Geass user needs to learn to control their Geass properly, or else the Geass will become active at random times, as seen when Lelouch accidentally used his Geass on Euphemia to command the Britannians to slaughter the Japanese. The most famous Geass ability in the show is used by the protagonist himself, Lelouch v Britannia. The ability is called the Power of Absolute Obedience. Lelouch's Geass, as the name suggests, compels anyone to absolute obedience, no matter what person he uses it on, that forced to follow his command. After the order has been given and completed, the victim forgets everything that occurred after it was activated. However, the Geass does have some restrictions. When first given to a user, it manifests in one eye. To gain a Geass in both eyes, you need to evolve the Geass. This is done by repeated use and essentially mastering the power to the point where you can control it, unlike letting the power consume you, as shown by what happened to Mao. The biggest weakness of the Geass, however, is that it can't be spammed like other eye abilities on this list. Once it's used on a specific person, it cannot be used again. There is no limit to the command as well, as shown by Lelouch when he was testing out the Geass's limits. He used his Geass on a Britannian student and commanded her to leave a tally mark on the stone wall every day. And the most infamous case was with Suzak. Lelouch used his Geass on Suzak and ordered him to live. And no matter what, Suzak cannot take his life or try to sacrifice himself. This ability has seemingly helped Suzak, as when on the losing end of a battle, his Geass order kicks in and allows him to essentially surpass his limit and win the battle. The Geass can also be used on a person via reflection, as shown when Lelouch used the multiple shards of a mirror to Geass his father into shooting himself. From the anime Charlotte, Plunder is an eye ability that hides an insane power stealing potential behind an unassuming facade. Its basic mechanism allows the user, Yu Otosaka, to possess someone's body for approximately 5 seconds, leaving his own body limp and vulnerable. While this can be used for misdirection, Plunder's true power is revealed when targeting an ability user. By possessing someone with a supernatural power, the user permanently steals that ability for themselves, taking away the victim's power and making it his own. With no known limit to how many abilities can be absorbed, a Plunder user can stockpile hundreds to potentially thousands of powers. Versatility is its greatest strength. For every foe possessed with a supernatural power of sorts, the user grows stronger, potentially gaining power like teleportation, pyrokinesis, or even time manipulation, as shown in the series. An enemy's unique technique can be taken mid-fight and immediately turn against them. However, such unexcessive ability comes with equally heavy drawbacks. Each stolen power exacts a toll on the user's mind, causing them mental instability and potentially lose memories as their cognition deteriorates. As Yu accumulates abilities, he experiences paranoia and emotional instability, risking a complete loss of self. Furthermore, the limitations and side effects of the stolen powers can be inherited as well. In a battle, an inexperienced user is vulnerable during the 5-second possession, while a veteran user who has immused many powers is nearly unstoppable but risks their mind shattering under the strain. By the end of the Charlotte series, Yu is a shell of his former self, consumed by the thousands of abilities he took, showing that with Plunder, the user must beware becoming a victim of their own success. Next is the Sharingan from Naruto. The Sharingan is the Uchiha clan's Kekkei Genkai, divided into 2 powers, the Eyes of Perception and the Eyes of Hypnotism. The Eyes of Perception lets the user see chakra as colors, distinguish types, and detect genjutsu by spotting irregular flow. Though not as sharp as the Byakugan, it grants remarkable clarity, reading lips, copying pencil strokes, even tracking minute body movements. With more Tomoe, its perception evolves, from following fast movements to outright predicting attacks, giving the user limited precognition. However, even if they see what's coming, their body may not react in time. The Eyes of Hypnotism enables genjutsu and manipulation of minds, senses, and memories. By reading chakra and hand signs, the Sharingan can copy ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu, but only if the user's body and chakra reserves allow it. They cannot copy kekkei genkai or techniques beyond their limits. The eyes can also gauge an opponent's chakra levels to anticipate their endurance and next moves. All Sharingan powers are vision-based. Thick mist, dust, or blindness can nullify them. Attacks too fast to follow or patterns too irregular, such as Naruto's chakra arms, can bypass its prediction. Sharingan's genjutsu also requires eye contact, meaning opponents who avoid it or are blind can resist. The Sharingan awakens through trauma and negative emotions. Sasuke's emerged after witnessing the Uchiha massacre by his brother, Itachi. The deeper the hatred, the stronger the eye's power. Although if a user experiences the death of someone dear, their Sharingan may evolve into the Mangekyo. The Tomoe shift into unique designs, different for each Uchiha. Mangekyo enhances all base powers and grants unique abilities in each eye, alongside the Susanoo, a massive chakra avatar that grows in size, wields weapons, and in its perfect form, grants light. Itachi's right eye wielded Amaterasu, black flames that could burn anything, even fire itself, and would never extinguish unless he wielded it. With either eye, he could cast Tsukuyomi, a genjutsu manipulating time and reality. Victims could endure 72 hours of torture in seconds, and at its peak, Itachi trapped Izumi in an illusion where she lived decades in moments before dying of old age, a feat that killed her body in reality. But the Mangekyo comes at a steep cost. Massive chakra drain, pain in every cell when using Susanoo, and most infamously, progressive blindness with continued use. The blindness can be cured if an Uchiha transplants a Mangekyo of a sibling or close-blooded relative, creating the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. This stage eliminates vision loss and amplifies abilities, allowing near-limitless use. Only Madara and Sasuke reached it. The final evolution is the Rinnegan, born when Mangekyo is combined with the power of the Sage of Six Paths. Madara awakened his after implanting Hashirama's DNA, though it took years to manifest. Sasuke gained his when Hagoromo gave him half his chakra. The Rinnegan grants mastery over the six paths, along with the seventh. The Diva path controls attractive and repulsive forces, while the Asura path allows the user to summon mechanized armor and weaponry. The human path can read minds and extract souls, killing the target instantly, whereas the animal path summons giant creatures to fight alongside the user. The Predator path absorbs chakra in inner form, and the Naraka path summons the king of hell, wreathed in purple flames, which can interrogate by pulling out a victim's life force tongue and passing judgment, or restore bodies by swallowing and releasing them fully healed. Finally, the outer path grants control over life and death, the ability to create chakra receivers and binding chains, and even the power to revive the dead. Among these, the Naraka path, with its ability to heal and restore, is often considered the most valuable. So, out of all of the abilities in this list, which is the best and what's the worst? Well, starting from the worst on this list, it would undoubtedly be the Six Eyes. In the world of JJK, the Six Eyes would be an absolute godsend. It allows a user to not run out of curse energy, which is a great boost to physical stats as it allows you to keep on fighting, perceive all five senses, and the flow of curse energy itself. However, the Six Eyes is constantly taking in information, so much to the point that to a normal person, it would absolutely fry your brain. Gojo's willpower isn't that of a normal human. It's at a level of its own, which is how he's able to use the Six Eyes so efficiently. But outside of JJK's cursed energy system, the Six Eyes is more of a resource management ability than a true fight ender. That's why it lands dead last on this list. Next up, we have Gennosuke's Dojutsu from Bausik. Now, this is one of those abilities that sound unfair at first glance. If someone looks at Gennosuke with their intent to kill, they fall straight into his illusion, making them turn their weapon on themselves or allies. It doesn't need eye contact and it works on entire groups at once. But here's a problem. It only activates if you have murderous intent or strong intent to damage the user. If fight coldly, use traps or rely on indirect methods, it won't trigger at all. So while it's deadly against reckless fighters, it's way too conditional to be placed any higher. In 5th place, we've got the all-seeing eyes of God from Kekkai Sensen. Leo's eyes are easily some of the most versatile when it comes to perception alone. He can see faster than light movement, unravel illusions that mess with causality, and even perceive the true nature or quote-unquote real name of beings. On top of that, he can project hallucinations back into the opponent's vision, tricking them with fake images or even erasing himself from sight entirely, even boosting his allies' sight by projecting what he sees onto them. But at the end of the day, it's still a support ability. It doesn't directly end the fight on its own, which is why it only sits in the middle of this ranking. 4th on this list would be Plunder from Charlotte. At first, it doesn't sound all that crazy. You can possess someone for 5 seconds. But it really shines if that person has an ability. You can steal their power forever once you possess someone. There's no limit to how many abilities you can take, which means over time, you can stack an arsenal of broken powers. However, those 5 seconds of vulnerability are a big weakness. Against a faster, deadly ability, you might not even get the chance to use it. Though still, its long-term potential is insane, which is why I have it so high up. Now for the top 3, starting with Geass, specifically Lelouch's Geass of Absolute Obedience. With one look and a single command, the fight is over. Sleep, don't move, or obey me. It's that simple. On paper, this sounds like it should be number 1, but it has some big drawbacks. You can only use it once per person, and it requires a verbal command. And if your opponent is faster than you, they can blitz you before you even finish speaking. Lelouch made it work perfectly because of his intelligence and strategy, but in a straight up battle, it's powerful but not flawless. 2nd place goes to the end of series Sharingan and Rinnegan package. The Sharingan gives precognition and Genjutsu, the Mangekyo adds unique hacks and Susanoo, and the Rinnegan stacks on gravity control, soul rip, chakra absorption, even resurrection. Each of these alone is crazy, but together, they're overwhelming. The only reason it isn't number 1 is because despite all that versatility, it still can't bypass reality on a conceptual level. And finally, the strongest ability of them all, the Mystic Eyes of Death Perception. These eyes don't just let you kill people, but they let you kill anything, be it a wall, curse, a future event, and even someone's ability itself. If Shiki can see the lines of death, one strike ends its existence. Durability, regeneration, immortality, none of it matters. The only limitation is whether she can actually reach her opponent. But if she does, the fight is already over. That's why, out of every eye ability on this list, the Mystic Eyes stand at the very top. But again, as I mentioned in the beginning, I cannot cover all of the eye abilities in anime, so if there are other overpowered eye abilities, please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed, subscribe. Thank you for watching.